Nigeria, the Labour Party has accused the Independent National Electoral Commission of deliberately coming up with the idea of reconfiguring the bimodal voter accreditation system machines after its presidential candidate, Peter Obi, sought to examine the election materials. This was as the party faulted the Commission's claim of backing up the data retrieved from beavers without the presence of independent witnesses and representatives of political parties or observers.
The protest is coming barely 24 hours after INEC rescheduled the planned governorship and state houses of assembly elections, earlier stated for March 11th, in order to reconfigure the beavers' machines. The move was made possible after the Presidential Election Petition Court, sitting at the Court of Appeal in Abuja, granted the Commission's request to reconfigure the beavers that were used for the presidential poll. This morning, we're joined by political and public affairs analyst and Executive Director, Lead Network Africa, Chukwuma Okenwa. Good morning, Chukwuma Okenwa. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's a lot of drama going on as regards the beavers, its use. The Labour Party, the PDP were they were not in support of the results that were announced in favor of the APC. But I think we should go back first, before we come into talking about this, to ask about your thoughts about the presidential election. People had complained about some discrepancies in the results, but you were an observer, and I'd like to find out what your thoughts were on the elections.
Well, INEC clearly reneged on its promises to deliver a credible and fair election by ensuring that the data of voters are not only verified sustainably using a bimodal system, that uses a two-way system to validate voters, but at the same time, the results are transmitted in real time. And of course, the backup component of that, which is the manual or the human integral part of it, would be the party agents having signed, the results, should be able to say, okay, endorse that the result is okay, and then it's pasted before everyone before being captured and transmitted in real time, such that every legitimate voter that is registered can assess via the IRF the authenticity of the results, confirming that what they were when they were present and the results were counted was the same thing, validated just right on the INEC side. But that was not done, and many political pundits has thought and submitted that it's likely intentional, considering the fact that in a lot of cases, like in the case of the senatorial and the House of Rep, which is still the same platform, many of the results and many of the process were a bit more seamless compared to that of the presidential election, that even up to 12 midnight, only about 1,000 results out of over 176,000 polling units has been uploaded.
Well, very interesting there. And these are things that Nigerians will continue to talk about until the dust settles, and no one is sure when this dust will settle. Give us, your thoughts basically on the controversy concerning reconfiguring of beavers or to not reconfigure beavers. The Labour Party's request, and of course the INEC stance concerning some of all of this. I've described it as some level of incompetence, to need to reconfigure beavers because of governorship elections that come up, a few weeks after. And I feel like INEC should have been able to make proper provisions to save whatever information was left from the presidential elections until whatever court cases are done before we start to talk about reconfiguring. So share your thoughts on that one. And do you think that the courts asking INEC to save, the information would be good enough?
Well, I think there is a very big problem as regards to the way we handle electoral issue. The issue of reconfiguration was not before now identified by INEC on its set guideline as part of the things Nigerians should look out for. Because what's the essence of reconfiguring? If for platforms where every time you have management of data, like in the case of immigration, custom, maybe for every time they will have to like reconfigure all of their systems. I mean, what really makes INEC an institution would be, just like in a case, when you get a new passport number, if anybody check anytime, any day, it should be able to be shown that this person have had 3 passports in time past. And I believe like any formidable system, as I claimed in the case of BVAS, should have been able to do that without reconfiguration. Since that was not even stated ab initio as part of INEC guidelines. So I am thinking, and I have like every problem with the way judiciary handles some of the issues in recent times in Nigeria. First, we'll see like a judiciary interfering with CBN policy, which entirely it doesn't have jurisdiction over. Second, like in this particular case, what would have expected is, oh, even if it will mean suspending the elections till like thorough inspection is done, or even interrogating the basis, the rationale for the proposed reconfiguration, because I see this as one level to another. And even like when some of those parties earlier on raised up an alarm of the possibility of some RECs, resident electoral commissioners, having party affiliation, it fell on deaf ears. So one still wonders whether the judiciary is still the last hope of the common man or the temple of justice. So a lot needs to be done in that particular sector if we must get it right as a country. I believe that, for instance, if the judiciary lives up to its responsibility to the people, no politician will want to rig, because they are certain that when they must have spent money buying votes, trying to truncate the fairness of the process, that the judges will be waiting for them in the court to rightfully deliver the mandate to who it rightfully belongs to. Howbeit, it's been a case of, okay, INEC hurriedly announces election, and then opposition is not the one telling you, or the people that stole the mandate allegedly will be the one saying, go to the court, because they know in the court, it will just be like a kind of a place now to seal up, the mandate and make it permanently theirs.
All right. Okay, well, let's talk about, what the demand that the Labour Party is making. They're asking to have witnesses to be there when this said reconfiguration is happening. And now, is this a fair request? And why do you think INEC is blatantly refusing? There have been reports that some tech experts have confirmed that the reconfiguration process will not affect the data on the BVAS, as it is already backed up by INEC, and that the only concern that may be there would be if the certified true copy presented by INEC is sort of matching with the one that's available on the server. So the question is, if there are no hidden issues to this, why is INEC refusing to have witnesses to be there whilst they're reconfiguring the BVAS?
Well, let me point out that if before now INEC has done all it's supposed to do as an institution, they have their rights. You don't interfere into certain things like, oh, fine, a political party saying we have to be there for the reconfiguration process. That really tells you that as a people, INEC is fast losing its popularity, its credibility, right? Just like a student telling the teacher and say, okay, due to perceived injustice in time past, I want to stay where you are not only marking my script, but marking the script of others. That would be like interfering. But of course, what would you reasonably expect when like an institution as formidable as INEC to manage election at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level can condescend so low to faulting the whole of the process? Within 24 hours after the election, INEC admitted that he reneged on its promise and failed on the mandate, yet it hurriedly they did like the sham that was called result collation. Collation should have actually been, where results are interrogated. And cases are hard, preliminary. Since we have an INEC, should it always end at the court? Did we ask judiciary? The judiciary has the mandate to conduct the elections. Why should the final decisions always be taken by them, under the pretext that, like in the case of Nigerian own case? In an egalitarian society, what is expected is you have a credible umpire that when the person is done with the process, there will not be any need to go to the court to challenge it, because that for everyone that is concerned, that there is a great deal of credibility. So since INEC has not done that, everyone have doubts. And I think at this particular point, wherein those preliminary complaints of, oh, no, we didn't follow the process, the results were not duly transmitted, this didn't happen in this polling unit, the results is no reflection of the things that happen in the polling unit, then at this particular point, any request that is made to ensure that we don't see further compromises on the part of INEC, of INEC, is reasonably expected because, of course, desperate situations require desperate measures.
All right, let's also bring you in on this new ruling by the court allowing two persons to vote with their temporary voter cards. I'm not sure if you've seen that that story yet, but it seems like it might be, a change, and with the whole conversation, on permanent voter cards, and of course the eligibility of voters. What are your thoughts on that one? INEC, according to the newspapers this morning, might be challenging that court ruling. But where do you see that taking us?
Well, I think what actually I see now is the judiciary is also fast becoming lawmakers in Nigeria. I mean, they should just remain within the ambit that the jurisdiction that the law has kept them in. There's separation of powers, and they are meant to interpret the law and to serve justice appropriately. So, I mean, on what template, what reference does the judiciary have, like, to all of a sudden against the guidelines of INEC? And of course, the law empowers INEC to be able to, like, set guidelines in some regards, and in this particular instance of ensuring that only those with permanent voter card, right, should be the ones to register. So the fact that the judges will come or the court and make some declaration doesn't make it right. Like in the case of what we saw on election day, where the major leaders in APC and in the nation, the president, who is the chief arbiter of the law in the nation, we saw like a Malami, those going out to vote, displaying their ballot papers, contrary to the laws, the guidelines that were set for this process. So I think basically as a people, we need to really come to a point of actually telling ourselves, our laws are our laws. And by the virtue of rule of law, it doesn't matter who is involved. If you are wrong, you are wrong. And you should be collectively held responsible by Nigerians because it's a collective abuse on our sensibilities.
All right. Let's look at the cost of this extension and what the postponement of these gubernatorial and House of Assembly polls might mean for Nigerians and the economy. Now, according to SBM Intelligence, the cost of the postponement of last elections was a little over 2 billion naira. We know that the whole election exercise was powered by 355 billion naira. And as we have seen, it might maybe not have been enough. Now, it is projected that this postponement will cost Nigeria even more than it did in the 2019 elections. What are some of the other effects that you think this postponement might have? Do you think that it will maybe reduce voter participation and increase voter apathy? Are there concerns on how this might affect us economically and as well as people turning out at the polls?
Well, it's really quite discouraging, especially with the fact that the court granted INEC to reconfigure the beavers. So the question would be, what then is the confidence of the common citizens that by reconfiguration, that term reconfiguration, part of the term Nigeria would have also asked INEC is within to tell us the theoretical framework, the context, what exactly do they mean by reconfiguration? Because in the real time, when you have like a machine that is already on its own, built in to execute certain tasks, are you telling us that the beavers is meant to execute only one task at a time, but you used it to process a presidential, a senatorial, and a House of Rep election? Why can't it handle another election on the same day? Does reconfiguration means the loss of maybe data or a chances where the techies in Nigeria cannot be able to link up with whatever was on the beavers now with whatever INEC claims to now be the back end? Okay. Because INEC back end remains their back end. Okay. Somebody's back end is like your backyard.
But I think what I'm trying to find out is, We're saying that 2.23 billion was spent, naira was spent in the extra was spent in the 2019 elections after it was postponed. And what we're foreseeing is that it will cost us more. The postponement will cost us more. Do you foresee that this would also affect voter turnout? The fact that it's been shifted by 1 week?
That is the point I'm trying to stress.
Okay.
That since the process, I mean by bringing up the issue of reconfiguration, you've already declined the confidence of the citizens on INEC. That was the point I was trying to get to.
Right.
Like by saying, what does INEC actually mean by reconfiguration? And what will now be the basis for the Nigerian citizens to still, give that confidence to INEC that whatever thing it's doing, it's in the interest of the nation? I doubt it entirely, because it hit the nation like tsunami, and it's likely going to affect voter turnout by next Saturday. Howbeit, political parties are encouraged not to renege on the promises they have to their followers, but to encourage them to also turn out en masse and still be part of the democratic process. In whichever way, I believe that the more citizens get involved in the process, the more likely and the more chances we have to collectively insist that whatever we set as guidelines is eventually carried out in the best interest of the nation. At least, whatever be the case, so anyone that is rigging an election, we clearly understand that he is actually riding on stolen mandate. And we either want to impress the people when he enters there, to work like we've seen in a case like now, some governors probably who have been disappointing their people, all of a sudden we see pensions paid, all of a sudden we see impounded vehicles released, all of a sudden we see governors being very humble across board. And I think that's commendable, to really know that power truly belongs to the people.
All right. Mr. Okem, a final question from me. I want to get your views on the Enugu state elections. It seems like, it initially seemed like it was going to be a one-party conversation, but now Labour Party has sprung up, out of nowhere. ABGA also is, a large part of the conversation. What are your thoughts, and how things are heating up so far?
Honestly, since I was born and bred in this city, I've never seen an election as interesting and uncertain as this particular one. That up to this particular point, all of a sudden I know immediately Peter Mbah got the ticket of PDP. Many of us within the state, literally he was referred to as the incoming. Because based on the one-party system, the interesting thing about the Enugu political terrain is that since democracy was brought back from 1999, it's just one of the states that even at the councillorship level, you won't find another party. In the State House of Assembly, it's 24/24, 17/17 local government, 260/260 in terms of all of the ward councillors. So it's natural that once you have the PDP ticket, you are referred as the incoming. And all of a sudden, he moved from answering incoming to some of the twists to the hits, having some very heavyweights like Frank becoming very popular by the virtue of some of the associates he's worked with at the federal level, whether at the Nigeria Economic Summit Group or on some other platforms, weighing into his campaign, making him grow popular. And then what I now call the master stroke was the presidential elections that happened. And the very fact that a sitting governor lost, and PDP was quite very strategic in ensuring at the level of a House of Representatives, those they gave that ticket were the heaviest weight you can ever imagine in the state. A former PDP chairman, Vitaba, you have a currently serving chief of staff, and many others. But many of them lost, the London Bridge falling down, truly confirming that the power belongs to the people. And it sent across like shivers in the state. And when that happened, what the political pundits could adjudge that process was that PDP has lost the goodwill. That embodied ABGA to take the street credibility campaign he's been doing in the market up to from one street to another. And the winner also saw that on the part of Labour being energized now as the people's bride all across the nation and, stirring up its chances. And we also see another twist to the conversation. The fact also that the Labour candidate, at the level of the Enugu East Senatorial District was also killed. And that's on some level of sentiment with some fingers being pointing, at one of the major player in that particular region. And it's been a sense of concern, all of this enriching the unusual context we've seen in the conversation. And finally, let me point out something that is very interesting, that even all of this time when we review the permutations, both culturally, party-wise, in terms of goodwill, performance, antecedents, nobody can say for sure that this one have a greater probability of emerging. So it's a race to watch out for, and we all live to see it.
All right.
I like how you how you started the answer when you said, since you were born, you've never seen an election this keenly contested. Reminds me of when people say, since I was born and now I'm old. It's a religious thing, but I wouldn't complete it. Thank you, Chukwuma Okenwa, for joining us this morning on the show. We do wish you a wonderful rest of the weekend. And since you won't be voting, spend some time resting.
Thank you.